Well, there you go, folks. Welcome to Radio FM 88 Australia, and we're now broadcasting simulcast live on radio and live through Facebook and YouTube. You can jump onto the appropriate Facebook channels and the YouTube channels. And those who've been regular would understand that. If you're first time and you've been listening on the radio, now's a good time to jump onto the YouTube channel, Radio FM 88 Australia, or YouTube Andrena Forrest. Anyway, without further ado, and it's obviously coming up for Easter tonight after midnight, and of course for our UK listeners, they'll be switching across off onto daylight saving one, and Andrena gives a heads up on that one as well. So all the best, and enjoy your Easter. Andrena, it's all yours.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good day, and welcome wherever you are or listening in the world to Dreaming the New Dream. So thank you for being here. Today is the 28th of March, and yes, Easter is this coming Friday, Good Friday, so it's early this year. Anyway, without further ado, it's great pleasure to have Cath Covacin on our show today. I hope I got that right. I welcome. And Jeff met you last month in a Mind, Body, Spirit fair, and you're all about keys to potential. So great title, because we're all doing our best to bring out the best in us. And I know you were working with children and doing courses for children, which obviously reflects back on the adults, eh? So without further ado, how did you start all this? And I know you did share that you had a mindset to be a teacher, but listening to somebody else, that all changed. So would you like to share your story?
Sure. It's actually a funny story, because it was lucky, because I was working on my website and I needed to put together my all the work I'd done over the years. And it was interesting because I could look back and see these really big sliding door moments. And one of the first ones was when I was right back in high school. And when I was in school, my main goal, or my dominant career goal, was to be a school teacher. And there was one day, and I was in senior by this stage, and I ducked upstairs to do my homework because I had a teacher coming up, and I found her quite scary. I thought she was quite formidable. So I thought, well, I'm doing my homework. And I was up there doing the homework. I ducked out to get my bag from the bag racks, and I saw this student there from a lower grade. And the student was standing talking to this teacher that, I feared, and telling her something along the lines of, I haven't done it. I'm not going to do it. And you can't make me do it. And I just stood there and I thought then and there that, oh my God, how would I handle that? I couldn't handle that. How would I deal with that situation? I went back into the room. I don't know how the teacher dealt with it, but to be honest, my dreams were just shattered so quickly and so easily in that one moment. So that was a really big sliding door moment. So I thought, I was a little bit lost for a while, but ultimately I did get a job. I worked for the state government as a clerk, and was there about 8 years. And in that time, got married, had 3 kids. I had resigned after the second child and stayed home to be a stay-at-home parent. And while I was at home and the kids started growing up, I was looking for work. I was looking for something that didn't interfere too much with looking after the kids. And it was so ironic because these friends of ours decided to open a clothing shop, and they asked if I'd like to iron clothes to put into the shop. And I thought, yeah, I could do that. And then suddenly they said, well, actually, can you go into the shop and run the shop? Because we've got to go out to the wholesalers. Now, my other big handicap, was I was super, super, super shy and quite nervous and not confident at all. But anyway, I think if they'd asked me if I wanted to work in the shop, I wouldn't have accepted. But because it was sort of like a side door entry, I started ironing. But over the time, it was just such a brilliant opportunity for me because, I grew in confidence. I could talk to people. I mean, the first month, I'm sure I didn't speak to anyone, but I grew to love it. I ran the shop. They'd go overseas for months, and I'd be loving window displays, and so that was a really sliding door moment for me because it really brought me out and gave me the confidence. Now, working in the clothing shop, I didn't see as a career move. So I decided, I had to, kids were getting older, I needed to get a career. So I thought I'll go to uni. And I also thought, this might be an opportunity to be, that school teacher again. I thought, I could be a science teacher because I went back to uni to do science. And my daughter did say to me that the kids coming up today were not the same as last time. So I thought, there was that niggling, kids aren't easy thing. But, I thought, well, I'm going to do the science and we'll see what happens. But I was doing it externally first and working full time, and then changed to going internal and working part-time. And when I went internal, I'm sure the very first semester of my internal studies, a lecturer walked in and talked about parasites. And I was absolutely hooked. I loved them. I found them fascinating. I thought these manipulative little buggers, they could make hosts do anything, and they would just gnaw away sometimes at the host, just eroding away at them. And they were so clever, so manipulative. They could, the way they would do these things to avoid our immune system. And so, being a science teacher sort of got swished aside because I decided I'll do honors just to see if maybe research is where I want to go. And then I also then thought, no, I'll do a PhD. But I did a PhD and I included parasitology and microbiology because I thought viruses, bacteria, they're all parasites, Parasites is a big field. And the main definition of a parasite is that it causes harm to its host. But, I absolutely loved them. And when I was doing that job, finished that study, I ended up ultimately in my last position. And this was another sliding doors moment. Because when I was working, I was the senior scientist or senior parasitologist for Biosecurities Queensland. And I thought, this job's got a lot of responsibility. It was a lot of work. It was busy, but I loved it. It was all about parasites and everything else. COVID came in during this time, and there was other influencing events. But otherwise, I ended up doing a course. And when I was doing the courses, I actually started using them at work. If I had a difficult person to deal with, I'd think, I know what to do. I'd, go and use the strategies I'd learned in the course. Or if things got overwhelming or huge and busy, I kept using the strategies I had already learned. And then I was there one day, thinking about, what difference would it have made to my life? How different would it have been if I'd done the course, so much earlier? And I always think I certainly would have kept the science because that was something I was passionate about. But I just wondered what changes it would have made. And then I thought, as a younger person, and I think about that time, there was just a sort of one news item after another. A young girl had committed suicide. Several students in the US had gone in and shot their classmates and teachers. And I mean, here there's this big scream against youth crime. They're out of control. And the citizens, I suppose, the police are just screaming out for punish them, punish them harder. And it used to break my heart because I used to think, what has happened to these kids? What has happened in their lives to make them take the actions that they're taking now, to get themselves in so much trouble? And, it reminded me of the parasites. The parasites I loved, how clever and nasty and manipulative they are. And this is what I was loving about, one thing you learned in the course is that these thoughts and feelings and beliefs you have, I wondered what thoughts and feelings and beliefs these kids have that made them do such, as I said, take these crazy actions. There is a couple of parasites, that we used to joke about when I was doing the study with the kids, and one was toxoplasmosis. And talk about manipulating its host. It would actually, if a mouse was infected with it, the mouse would actually run out in front of the cat and ensure that it was eaten by the cat, because the parasite needed to complete its life cycle in the cat. And there's fish that, if they're infected with the worm parasites, will actually swim on the surface of water so that the bird will eat them. And again, the parasite completes its life cycle. And I thought, this is like these kids. They've got these parasitic ideas just eroding away at them, making them do these crazy behaviors. That's not them. It's not their behaviors. And so, that's where I suddenly found my passion. And I decided that was it. I was going to change around and do this. And the irony was, I think, was when I was looking at this the other day, it's like a complete circle. It was that child that was a little bit rough and out of control that was standing up and talking to the teacher. And these are the kids that I actually now want to go back and work with. I mean, hopefully we work with them before they get to that stage. But they're the people that I think needs the programs, they need that help. So it was funny. It would sort of went all the way around till I've ended up exactly where I wanted to be, teaching, but teaching the kids I was trying to avoid all my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never heard anyone say before how much they love parasites. But I can understand what you're saying and why. But I mean, I have to laugh because Carol put up a little comment just now as we were talking, and she put, "Crumbs, is Cath talking about politicians or parasites?" Hee hee.
I know.
Anyway, yeah. So so it's a good way, because I know you talked about emotions being your parasites, and they go round and round, and you feed on them and all of that. So from this point, that point onwards, how did you put your course together?
Well, it was interesting because there's been lots and lots of changes and modifying it, and it will still modify and change to suit the students. But there's several layers to it, but I've just kept it simple. And the very first one is just a simple steps and processes that anybody can do. And I've done it with adults as well. And it's like just a simple process they can do to stop them residing in that one space. What we do is, so the courses are done by the students, and the students get the skills. I remember when I was a parent and I was doing things, and I had 3 kids, and I thought, things weren't effective. The kids were losing it a bit, and I was struggling with my son. And I would go off and do a course, how to be a good parent. And I mean, it just added more angst to what I was doing. I was even more time poor, and but it wasn't really helping the child. I was trying to then interpret what I'd learned and put it into practice. So what I decided when I was doing these was to make the children, or allow the children to do the courses. So the children are the ones that get the skills. So I was thinking of it earlier, it's like teaching them to fish. Instead of trying to fix every time they have a breakdown or they're in their a bad mood, you actually, instead of feeding that, we actually send them out to fish so they know how to solve the problem themselves. So they become, their own, I suppose, predominant creative person. They look after their own lives, so to speak.
Because I know, because you said you work mainly with 9 to 16. Is that still the case?
It is. I do work with adults, and when the courses run, it was mainly to get kids, and I only really included the 16 in the early part because I'm really hoping that eventually it's just to the younger kids. So by the time they get to 16, they've actually done the courses, and they're actually, it's like a way of life that they have. I could, something sort of, well, some unique aspects of the course is that, so the kids do it, not the adults, although we do a training night for the adults just so they can get the gist of what's happening and support it and follow along.
Can I just interrupt there?
Yeah.
What I'm picking up here, there's two components to your whole profile here. The first one, we had a lady some years ago called Shakti Selwood, who went on a particular diet, juice diet or whatever, and she passed out a 6-foot-long tapeworm parasite. And we've always heard about people saying, "Oh, my gut instinct tells me this," and then all of a sudden we've got you, and you explaining how these parasites and this stuff and how they trigger the host. And of course, it seems like that's where I come to the two processes. Is the first one on the health issue, first of all, to go through and clean the gut and get rid of those parasites, and then the second component is coming back in and doing the keys to potential, because they seem to dovetail between the two of them, to be perfectly honest, now that I'm listening to you. Yeah.
One would hope that if you were doing the course and you would notice that there was some health issues, then you would deal with them. Actually, tapeworms, they actually aren't that bad. I always thought tapies were all right. Don't get me started, because I said to someone, "Oh, if I start talking about malaria, I've really lost it." But fascinating, because they just attach to the host, but they just actually hang in there and they absorb nutrients that you've eaten through the skin. I mean, I think that they were actually using tapeworms as a dietary thing, a long time ago.
Thank God.
Put tapeworms in, but to be honest, they wouldn't help. I mean, I used to think if I could genetically modify a tapeworm to suck up fat, now that would be brilliant.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you could eat a cream bun, you'd get all the nutrients, and they'd just take all the fats away, and you'd get this great fat tapeworm dropping off, all the time. But
the Americans are getting Botox in their lips and in their bum.
Why would they get it in their bum? Anyway,
yeah,
I'm not sure.
Don't think we'll go there.
No.
All right, so I'll change the subject there, but I just felt when I was listening to you, I realized, oh my God, there is a health issue here, and you seem to dovetail between the two of them because of your background in microbiology and the parasites. It just seems like that, and educating on top of that again. I think you've got a really great, it's a surreal product overall.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Actually, that's what I was going to say, that the courses are actually just based on fun activities and games. So really, the kids don't even know that they're really learning. And actually, when I've run it with adults, they just think it's fun as well. I do exactly the same thing I do with the kids that I do with the adults. The other thing is, simple. The course recognizes, it helps them to actually recognize their emotions and to understand that emotions are just information. That's all they are. They're just information of what's happening for you. they're actually specific to you. And that's important for them to know too, that their emotions are actually just their emotions. And the other thing to realize is that being angry or sad or anxious is not bad. It's not good. It's not wrong. It's not right. It is just information of what's going on for them. It's their reaction to a situation or event. But what we try to do is to separate that emotion. A lot of people, young and old, get caught in the emotion of an event. They're angry. And when they're angry, you just can't get through to them. That they won't listen, they're shut down. And all their actions come from this angry space. So we play games to separate anger out a little bit so they get to understand. So, okay, you're feeling that emotion, but what are you thinking? And, there's other things that they have to recognize that's going on. So the emotion doesn't get to be the main player of information for them to stay in and react in. And they get to learn too that their emotions are definitely unique to them. So a situation may happen. And there's one we do in the first class. It's there's 3 girls, and there's a small stray dog. And the girls same age, same size, and they see this dog. Now, one little girl's going to think, or she could think that she's really scared that the dog will bite her. And another one will think that dog is disgusting. It's got stuff stuck all over it and it smells and it's just awful. It's just disease on a stick. That'd be me. And the third one will just push past the other 2 and rush down and pick up the sad looking puppy. That would be my daughter, and she'd bring it home and hope she could keep it. And yeah. But, very different reactions. So everybody understands that their emotions are just their emotions. And it's really there as information, nothing else. The other thing, that was just say is that learn they're not broken. It's okay to be angry. It is okay to be anxious. Each person is unique. That's who they are. And we're not going to fix them or change them. And the world needs unique people. All the things that shape us make us unique. And so we don't change who they are. We just get them to spend less time as the angry person or the anxious person.
Fantastic. So when you're working with the younger children, how much do they blame it on their parents, different things when you're working?
We don't even get to that stage. What we do is they play games, and the first one's just imagination games, and it's just a practice to separate thoughts, feelings, and other information. So we just play games, and it's not about blaming anybody else, because all they're worried about is themselves and what they're going through. So we play those games, and those games are really important too, because the kids have to learn to share. So they're there and they get comfortable sharing. They get comfortable, talking about what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and what they're seeing. And they get comfortable with the process. So we play the games, and then we just get to the stage of thinking about, okay, what's, a situation that went, that didn't work out. And, one little girl had that a friend came up and wouldn't, just said to her, I don't want to play with you today. That could be quite crushing. But so, you stand there, and we use circles. And I love circles because circles define a space. They keep it in that space. So when you're in that space and you're working through what you're thinking, what you're feeling, it's just there. You don't go away with it. You don't take it away. It remains in that circle. And sometimes we rub the circle out if we're working on paper. Sometimes we put a line through it. But they stay in that circle until they've looked at all the aspects. But then we have to tell them to, okay, but what would you really love? You know, even though this girl has said she doesn't want to play with you. And what it does is it just changed their whole focus. So then they focus on, well, you know, I might just want to go to the library and be with some friends and do some stuff, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And so they go to a second circle and they think about what they'd really like to choose. And later on, they actually then take an action from the second circle to create what they've just decided what they'd like to do. You know, they might go and get their bag and go to the library. And, you know, what you've done is you've shifted them out of this heartbreak, you know, into some thinking about what they can do. And that's their new focus, and off they go. Mm-hmm. You know, there's all little rules. You can't make choices from the first circle because that just keeps you in that nasty parasite-filled fest. You can only make them from the second circle.
How many do you have in your group sessions at a time?
There's only been a few, and there's only been a few at a time, but you only want to be honest about 10, because you want everybody to be seen and to be heard and to share. You know, you don't want those ones that sit there and slide away in the background because, you know, there's one person that shares a lot, or so you keep the group small. Also, too, if someone might be a bit uncomfortable about sharing, you know, they get quite comfortable in the smaller group. You know, it's more a little group that we're meeting with.
How long do your group sessions run for, each one? Like, so like you've got like key 1. So is that like a 5-week program and then they can go on to key 2? How does that work?
Yeah, key 1 runs for 4 weeks. And again, this has been structured because I'm very parent focused as well. And so what they do is they pay for 4 classes or 4 sessions. Now, the first session is the intro. We actually go through the majority of the work in that 1 week. When I first started, you know, I went and I ran it with a couple of people, and we ran it, and they loved it, and they had fun and everything else, and they went home and just forgot about it, you know. And I went back a couple of weeks later to reinforce it, and they thought it was just a fun thing they did that day. Yeah. So we restructured it. So once a week, on a Wednesday, the last Wednesday of the month, there is the intro class. So everyone has to do the intro class, but then they can drop into 3 Saturday classes. They don't have to be in order. They don't have to be, you know, if a person's away for 2 weeks, doesn't matter. They can just still drop in any 3 Saturday classes. And what these do, they reinforce the process. So they can go away for a week or 2 weeks and think about what they do, you know, and you come back and you'd say, well, was there any problems? You know, was there a situation? You know, can anyone, oh yeah, you know, I was really angry, and then I remembered, and I did my stuff, you know. And you want to reinforce that this is the way you do it. The other thing is, when you first start these processes, it does take a little bit of time, you know, because you're kind of manually working your way through. But I mean, for myself, it's very quick. As soon as I notice that I'm feeling a negative, you know, angry or frustrated, I think, well, hang on, something's going on here. But for kids, hopefully it becomes a quicker, faster process over time once they've done it a few times. And that's why it runs for at least 4 weeks. They can stay longer because they, you know, it's just reinforcing the habit. And that's what so it becomes a natural process. And, you know, the younger the kids are, the easier it is to introduce a new habit. It's much harder in a more mature person. I know my sister-in-law, and she'll be telling me something, and I said, even my daughter, I said, oh, did you think about, you know, the circle? She goes, no, I didn't. Didn't think about the circle because we're so patterned to act and react how we have.
How do people find you? Oh, so go on.
No, I was going to say that was so it's sort of family friendly. So it's online. So they can be at home and they just drop in, and so no one has to be taken anywhere or picked up, and they can use the classes up as it suits them. Yeah, online. Actually, this was a great opportunity doing this, and I have to thank you both to being on the radio show. But it's online. I guess, that was something that I've actually been working on as well, is about getting the programs out there. And that was why I did Mind, Body and Spirit Festival, was to just, get the courses out to the people that need them.
Did you find a lot of people were talking to you about what you're doing and asking lots of questions?
They did, actually, and it was quite a learning curve, because it was interesting, because I had posters up, and I could see that some people were a little confronted by the posters and didn't want to admit that there was a problem. Then there was also the people where they thought, oh, yeah, this would be great. I'm going to, little Billy here is, always causing me troubles. It'd be great. But then little Billy saw, recognizing and processing emotions, and just it didn't really tick little Billy's, interest at all. And there was no way he would, wants to go along to a course once a week for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
To recognize his emotions. I mean, please.
Yeah.
It was funny. We just went through, I was talking to a mentor the other day, and we just went through and decided, well, the adults get the information, recognizing and processing emotions, but the kids, so we put nonsensical names in there. So instead of key 1 was recognizing and processing emotions, it's now called shizzle. So a kid, could be probably quite happy to say he or she has to go to shizzle on Saturday, and if anyone said, what's shizzle, they'd say, oh, we just play games, we have fun, and there's no repercussions to it. There's no agendas or judgments. It's just this nonsensical thing, a fun thing that they do.
Fabulous. So like, obviously that was your first time at the Mind, Body, Spirit Fair. So how are people going to find you apart from that?
Well, so first off, I will be posting. There is also, I was considering other podcasts.
Right.
But otherwise, that is, I've written a book as well.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I was going to say that I've written a book, and it's actually aimed at 15-year-olds, and it's a boy. It was a crazy thing to do, I thought. But it's a book about Josh, and to be honest, it is just program 1, maybe little bits of other programs woven into stories.
Nice.
So it's a story showing, about self-awareness and making choices. So that's for actually probably 12 to 15, 16-year-old boys. But I've had a lot of adults read that one and love it as well.
Oh, that's good.
So there's the book, and I had intended of taking the book when it's published. It's at the publishers now. When it's published, I was going to take the book to schools to see if they wanted to include it in their library. So the book was also a bit of an avenue for getting the programs out there. But that is my current work, is trying to get the programs to the people.
So what about if you obviously introduce yourself to schools and, went to different schools but then I suppose you've got to get is it better to get the parents more interested than the children, or something when you're talking sort of the children think, oh, I wouldn't mind trying that?
That was interesting. I know if I do, and I probably will do a Mind, Body and Spirit Festival again, I was telling the people about the course, and a lot of adults said, well, I would be interested in doing that. And so next year I'll definitely have brochures that say, you know, this is for the adults and this is for the children. I love doing it with adults because, you know, it doesn't go very deep. It's not going into, I mean, the second one does go a little bit deeper, the course 2, because you actually look at why your response is anger, whereas someone else might feel anxiety, why you feel sad and depressed, whereas someone else has got a completely different reaction. So I can't remember where I was going. I got distracted with my own picture. But I do love doing it with adults because it's just an easy, you know, I used to tell them at the festival, it's just a hack for adults. It's such a quick, easy thing to recognize suddenly you're in a bad mood. You don't have to be. So you can just use it. It's just a simple thing of stopping and recognizing it and moving on. And that's all this one does. It's not going to go too deep and resolve issues that have been there since you're a child. This courses I did are brilliant. I'd probably recommend that they, you know, do those if they want to go deeper into it and look at, you know, why they think and feel the way they do. We can certainly touch on it. And I would certainly, if someone was interested in coaching someone through it.
Excuse me. No, what was I going to ask you then? Oh, so it must give you great satisfaction, like when a child comes through the first session and they're working through, because in the past we've all been taught to block our emotions and push them away and not deal with them, whereas now everything's shifted so much, energy's different, that you know you have to look at what's going on and work through it and move it on, don't you?
Yeah, and you know, sometimes just recognizing that you're angry, it feels like, okay, she's recognized me. I can see that I'm angry. It really seems to take some of the sting out of it, but we don't try and dismiss it or replace it or substitute it or, you know, let's think of happy thoughts or any of those sorts of things. We just say, okay, you're angry. And I mean, in the courses, we did learn that anger is actually powerlessness. So if someone's feeling quite angry, I know that they're coming from a position where they're feeling like something's happening to them. They're not the ones in control. So you can address that, but we won't ever change that. But it's just recognizing that, you know, angry people are all right. They're probably just quite passionate. We just want to move that passion to the right place, to the right direction. But we never want to change it. We don't ever want to change the person. You know, I said before that they're not broken. They don't need to be fixed. They just need to be able to cope. And I mean, to be honest, these programs are so helpful for the adults. I mean, sometimes when kids get caught in this anger or they get depressed and they withdraw, you know, the parents just can't communicate with them. And they're not doing well at home. You know, they're causing discomfort at home. The parents themselves feel like, you know, they're failures, that they have somehow not managed to do the right thing, or, you know, there's a bit of a shame. They don't want to tell people. I could see people not wanting to admit that there was a problem. And at school, you know, they're not learning because they're just shut down. I mean, trying to talk to a kid when they're angry is just near impossible. So after, they've done the courses, then they get to be a little bit more calmer at school. So the outcome reflects back into the family. So the family is certainly a more dynamic, happier environment. And at school, instead of being the problem child, suddenly they're open, they're learning, and they're enjoying school.
Do you find like when they do like step 1, they've quite enjoyed it, and then they want to go on to step 2? So you're watching their progress of, they're sort of becoming more into their power and really letting go of lots of things that have been bothering them.
Well, I wouldn't. Originally, I used to have that, the young ones, the 9, 10s, 11s, they would just stay in the first course. But the difference is you can get some 9-year-olds that, as more mature than some 15-year-olds. So I changed that. But to be honest, a lot of the time, I think a lot of them are quite comfortable in the first one because they suddenly feel that life isn't so bad. For the older kids, I sort of encourage it a little bit. It's to, and I think it's more, it's something if they choose to want to know more. Everybody learns much better when they're the ones that have chosen to do the course or to do the work. So if they've been in the first one for a while and feel that, they're really comfortable and they got that, and they may start to wonder why, they get the angry one, yet, Johnny in the class is always anxious. He's worried about this and he's worried about that. And when their curiosity is piqued, then there's definitely the movement to the second class. The other 3 or 4, well, there's 3 really, structure, focus, and resistance, they're really there as tools for the students to learn to be more, I suppose, more academic success as well as emotional success. It teaches them about being focused on what they want to get and what they want to create. And the process we use in the very first one really just flows through all of them. So you need to do the first one before any of the others. But again, we still play games, for the focus one. We play a game, and that's for the people that were with me, where you've got to throw a ball through a small hoop. And, you ask them, so what were you thinking about, and some of them didn't want to do it because they thought they would miss and look a fool. And that lets them know that's where their focus is, not on what they want to create, that they're getting distracted by how something should be. What they could do, or what do they need, or do they have enough time? There's lots of distractions that take them away from their focus. So these are just simple tools they learn to get their focus back on. That that will help them as well. A great deal academically. The same as structure. Structure to me is almost like habits. When you want to change something, you need to change the structure. The structure can make things so simple. I remember when one of my daughters wanted to give up smoking, and she'd get up in the morning and out in the patio, cigarette, cup of coffee. But one of the easiest ways to reinforce this is to change that structure. You don't get up and have that cigarette and cup of coffee. You might have your first cup of coffee, in your room while you're sorting out what you're going to wear. You just change the structure. So they learn about having structures, about setting up structures. Like they get home, they might decide to do their homework first, and then they've got their free time. It's setting up structures for success. And it's the same as resistance. Resistance is another one where resistance is funny because it can be a little bit sneaky. You think you're doing stuff, but towards the end result, but little things get in the way. You don't have time. You've got other things you need to do that's much more important. But this is just resistance, believe it or not, to doing what you should be doing.
Yeah.
So these are just, and they're just little 2 days, and that's just really a growth thing. So the first two, and because the courses are for children, they're just kept at this simple layer just to give them some information and a guide.
Mm. No, it sounds fantastic, because obviously you're giving them a great start to, look at their emotions, and and like it is recognizing straight away something. We get a trigger, and I think, oh, and then I think, right, okay, why? Look, it's looking at it, and then it's like either giving it a voice or recognizing it. All right, okay, there's still some anger there, and move on, sort of thing. So do you find now that you're going to be doing more for the adults as well?
Yeah, I'd like to. Again, I think adults are funny to work with because they're not as open and accepting as kids. The kids don't see that there is anything wrong with what they think and feel, and they're quite happy to say, oh, okay, I'll do something different. But adults can get quite rigid. A lot of adults like to think that, and that it's somebody else's fault. It's not them. It's the others that have caused this. And look, that is I don't know if it's a good thing to say, but that's a bad way to think. If you think that something bad's happened to you because of somebody else, that takes away all your power. What you've just said is, I am so powerless that these things happen to me because of this other person. Whereas if you can stand up and say, okay, I created this shit fest. If I created it and accept that I created it, then I can create something different. So a lot of people, it's difficult to shift them from that blaming others. It's not their fault. They ran out of time. Their car broke down. All of these things. If they learn to accept that they actually created that is quite an empowering way to be.
And I think that's quite a key word at the moment, is having acceptance. You can't, whilst the past is gone, you can't change it. The future won't happen. We are here now in this moment. And whatever's going on, different challenges or whatever, it's just having acceptance. This is what's happening now, isn't it?
It is. And, there is actually a course that, and actually I'm going to Africa to do part of this sort of course. And that's the thing. The past is over.
Mm.
When you're living in your emotions, you're actually living in your past, because emotions trap you into what happened in your past. And that's one of the important things we do for the kids. We ask them, what do you see? What do you see happening? And that is, believe it, such a simple statement that's so pivotal, because what you're doing is you're bringing them back to the present. What is actually happening now? And I do that with adults. So what do you see? Because, otherwise they get into this anger thing or whatever it is, and they're going, oh, it always happens to me. I'm always being told what to do. There's always someone that's, telling me, and, I'm the one that's got to do. They're way back in things that happened, last week, last year, 5 years ago. So if you sort of say to them, but what do you see? And they think, well, oh, things come up to me. And so we want to bring them into the present to actually react to what's actually happening at this point in time.
Fantastic.
Hey, just hang on a sec.
Excuse me.
Hey, I got a mate and his missus, and they make sure that they go out on a date night on a Thursday. Yeah, so they've been married, before, so they've both got adult children, but they've come to the understanding that they need to have time for themselves. They have a busy life, and they set aside a date night. While I was listening to you, and I'm seeing all these different relationships that have come together, then they've dropped away, and throughout life, it seems to be your keys of potential could be a date night for couples to come and explore the emotions of their relationship and how the power of words has affected a fella, because the woman's mind's processing things and expressing it, and the fella's saying, "Oh, where did that come from?" And then, so your fun that you're talking about would probably bring some life and some festive and some joy back to a relationship, a marriage, de facto, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that pretty strong with you. Yeah.
Actually, you are so right. Even the kids have to learn that you do not know, and that's all through the book. You do not know what other people are thinking. We are always going around thinking what we think other people are thinking. So, in couples, it's interesting because they think that this is what the other person's thinking, but they have no real idea. And when you break it down, and you're right, it would be actually a fun thing. They'd say, okay, this was an event, and then to find out that the person was thinking this and feeling this and seeing this, it's quite an eye-opener. The other thing is too, you want to take away the responsibility of the other person trying to keep this person happy. You're only responsible for yourself. Everybody, well, we would say, is a sovereign being. So everybody has the ability, they're a strong, capable human being. We're not there to make sure that that person is happy. You want to be yourself. And if yourself, who you are, the way you are, and the way you express yourself and the things you do, does not automatically fit in with that person, then it isn't a good fit. But you don't act or try and be what you think someone else wants, because you're just guessing. You have no idea what another person is thinking.
Hey, I know a lot of potential healers, body workers, if you want to call it such, or cranial, sacral, or remedial massage and so forth. And they're working on people's bodies, and energetically, they're actually picking up the energy of that individual who's come to see them. Not only do they take on that etheric body of the person who they've just treated, I noticed that one of those healers, she will always go and have a shower after the client to have those negative ions go through the body, just to cleanse her, ready for the next client, because she's discovered that when she goes to bed with her husband, she can bring all that energy from all the clients that she's treated back into their family bed, and it does create. She's learnt that it did create a lot of issues in their marriage, and now what she's gone and done is transformed that, and they've got a very healthy relationship. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, and that's another thing. It's funny, when you're doing this work, it actually feels quite energized, because there is something, well, I suppose you're a bit passionate about it, and there's energy to it, and there's this element of fun with people having fun. There is no negative sort of thing. And that was another thing. I don't know if I mentioned it before. When the kids are feeling angry or whatever, their emotion, their go-to one is, they'll have a big one, and then they'll feel the array of emotions. But we tend to have a really big dominant one, but what we let them know too, it's really important that there is nothing right or wrong about these feelings, and there's nothing good or bad about these feelings. If you're an angry person, that's who you are. So that's absolutely fine. Actually, if after this talk, if married couples want to book in, very happy.
Fabulous. You mentioned Africa. So what are you doing going to Africa then?
Well, the guy that does all the courses I did, which was William Whitecloud, he's running a retreat in Africa. And a friend and I are going to go together, Camille. So that will be quite interesting. And I believe, so at the retreat, that is the theme or the premise for the holiday, I suppose I could call it a holiday. I tell everyone I'm going on a holiday to Africa. But, it's, to me, South Africa and that's the cradle of civilization. So I was keen to go there because of the, out of Africa.
Yes.
It's quite, I think, quite a, I'm
Have you
looking
been before?
No, I'm looking at some good energy from there.
Yeah, well, that'll be amazing. How long are you going for?
Well, actually, I'm staying on for a second retreat with another person. So I'll be there about a month.
Wow. Wow, when you go in?
2nd of August, I fly out and return on about the 28th or 29th.
Wow, well, have a fantastic time. I know you will. So, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to make an observation of life itself. I mean, I'm talking about my age group, our age group, and that we didn't have the intrusion of government or councils. Everything had to be done as a community. You built your tribe. I mean, if you want to build a clubhouse, the men turned up and dug the trenches, and then they used their networks to get building materials at trade price, and the girls would turn up and have all the sandwiches and bring in the teas and all that stuff, and we built tribes, and we also did Cubs and Scouts was all about collecting bottle drives to raise funds to Sea Scouts, so to buy boats and also for the Scout den, and then go for camping and so forth. And for the surf club, every weekend we turned up and that bonding with all the boys. We've got fellas now who are passing away, and all the boys turn up to the funerals. But apart from that, twice a year we get together for barefoot bowls, and a couple of boys go and play golf. My rugby league guys, we don't have that. The club died once the Brisbane Broncos came into the Football League. So what I saw was that now with the COVID situation, with the 3.5 years, we lost our tribe, and we had to find a new tribe, and we found that tribe online, and they could be anywhere in the world, but it still missed out on the actual hugs and the actual sitting down and enjoying. You girls might have a rosé, or it might be a cup of tea, or just that one-on-one human interaction and contact. And I think what I've observed is that when we grew up, we would always catch up with our cousins, and our cousins would all come together, and we're very strong and thick. And that's because, in Queensland here, you had to go to your local newspaper to find out when the service stations would be open after 12 o'clock on a Saturday, and who'd be open on a Sunday, because they would all close down on a Saturday. And so the Saturday shopping would close at 12 o'clock on a Saturday, and you'd had late night on a Friday night and late night on a Thursday night in the suburbs. But it meant that from 12 o'clock on Saturday afternoon and through to Sunday, it was time for family and friends to gather. And we don't have that now because of the whole dynamics in retail, where kids are not interacting with their parents or their cousins, because no one's got the time to actually interact and play cricket down at the park, or kick the ball around, or go for a paddle in the pool or whatever. And I find our tribe has somewhat been disorganized, disjointed. It's gone to disarray, and trying to find that tribe is where your key is the potential for these kids to find who is my tribe, who can I relate to, so you might have gone to school and you might learn to play tennis, or you might have played football, or might be in the reading class and learning about drama and all that stuff. I mean, I grew up in an environment that if you went dancing or you were singing, you were batting for the other team, and so generally all us males never went down that path, And so it seems to me that our society in one strength was coming together, and now it's disintegrated in the other sense that people moved into, well, I'm using Queensland now as an example of a major attraction. It was like moths coming to the light. So people came from all over the world and all over Australia to come into Queensland, and there was no networks because the parents came and they never had gone to school or been in the services, clubs or associates, so it became very strained. So I'm just seeing as a whole tribal community, we seem to be disjointed, and we're not actually interacting with our people anymore. We're not building our clubs. We're handing that responsibility to the government or to the council to build. We seem to be, we're not really being humans interacting with humans anymore.
No, we're quite fragmented, actually. So we've separated out. Actually, that reminded me of two things. One is, in the groups, you can get quite this feeling of, a belonging, and the thing is, because the games are so imaginative, there is nothing, you wouldn't label anything. There is no way of labeling it because they're just creative. So one wouldn't think that it was a girl's thing or a boy's thing, because the whole time it's an imagination thing. It's a thing, their activities and their games, and they're just fun things to do. So they're not, I was going to say, they're not female or male orientated. It's quite an easy thing. The other thing, I also, when I first started out, I was trying to put together these two, I called them rites of passage, because I really think, kids somewhere miss, that there is a certain series of events that they get to experience to let them know that they're getting a little older, then they're getting more mature. These days they're just hustled along and thrown out to a dance where they all dress up. And I wanted to run, so it's called Rites of Passage, one for girls and one for boys, where they'd go away for, 3 days, 2 nights, and it's just full of activities where they're unplugged and they're almost plugged into the environment. The boys get to do orienteering and talk from an elder, and the girls get to hear stories and do yoga and to do all, drumming, and there was a whole pile of activities to give them this rites of passage. So when they finished primary school and before they hit high school, it was something they could go through to sort of reflect some sort of growth in themselves, a recognition of moving on. But that was still in the planning stage.
Well, that's so needed everywhere these days, isn't it? Bringing people back together, especially on the evening, sitting around a campfire.
Yes.
Just people just sat talking and, being under the stars. Well, if you're in the right country and you can see them.
Yeah.
But we haven't been seeing them, I have to tell you.
Well, no, that's true, yeah. So,
we had plenty of rain.
Okay. So is there anything that you'd like to, words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with before we finish today?
Just to go online and book in. Don't think about it. Book in. You can book in, and as I said, that it's all structured around to make it comfortable and easy. The relief you get when you're doing something for the kids to help themselves. It's not about making them happy. It's making them wise. You're actually helping them to be the best version of themselves. And if you want to do the courses as well, all adults, anybody happy to do the course, that's absolutely fine. You just let me know the age when you're booking in, and we can do groups of adults. And it's true, they really are fun. And I
fun
think
is like Jack Nicholson and One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest, or what?
No, not that much fun.
Well, the thing is, That's so needed in schools nowadays. Everywhere you go, if you could give people or children that start from a young age, what a difference it would make to all the children around the world.
Mm. Yeah, I actually approached the schools trying to get it in because I thought that just the Key 1 program in schools would be good, But, the schools, I guess they've got people approaching them all the time, but the school said that they've got a program. And when I looked at the program, it was about the teachers recognizing the students that needed their individual attention, and the teachers recognizing and doing stuff. And I thought, what about giving the kids tools to do stuff? But it is a dream of mine to see actually that Key 1 program put in schools.
Fantastic.
That would be so good, I think.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I wish you all the luck and success in the world, because it sounds amazing. So Carol's written, how can people best eliminate parasites from their systems? What natural remedies would be helpful? And I know that I was told diatomaceous earth is brilliant for a spoonful of that for getting rid of any unwanted hangers on.
So yeah, it depends. I mean, some parasites aren't too bad. Not the tapies, of course, because they're useless. But there are some people that, and I don't know if it's the hookworm, whatever worm they're using to reduce inflammation in certain parts of the digestive system. I think it's Crohn's disease. They're actually looking at a parasite as a possible, not that I'd mess with biology.
No. Quite. God, mind boggles.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
thank you both.
No, thank you. It's been lovely listening to you and sharing, and it's so needed. So it's that the powers to be for it to go out on this powerful time out the airwaves to where it needs to go.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you everybody for listening. And I'm having a holiday next week. I'm having some time out. So but Jeff is going to be doing something on a Sunday evening, which I might tune into. We'll take it from there.
Hey, I got to because the lady's in the United States and it's too early in the morning for us, so we're going to do the show, but we're going to record it and then play it on our normal Thursday night. But look, this lady we're going to have, she's from a former from the Department of Defense, and she's going to explain about time for disclosure with all the extraterrestrials, people off-world who've met up with different governments over the years here on the planet Earth, and it's going to be an interesting subject.
Very.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you once again, Cath, and thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.